Hello children, today we begin our revision for the lesson The Final Victory. So let's begin straight away. Name the novel from which this extract has been taken. The novel is The Kite Runner. Who is the writer of the story? The writer is Khaled Hosseini. Spelling, be careful of the spelling. Khaled, Khaled Hosseini, Hosseini. Now, who is Amir? Amir is the son of a rich Afghan whom he calls Baba. He was motherless. So, we are in the first paragraph. Who is Ali? Ali is the servant of the house. Who is Hassan in the story? Hassan is the only son of Ali, the servant. Why was Hassan ridiculed? Or why did people make fun of Hassan? People made fun of Hassan because he had a cleft palate. What do you understand by a cleft palate? A cleft palate is an abnormal condition of the mouth in which the hard palate or roof of the mouth of a person is not completely joined, and because of it, a person is unable to speak clearly. So, what does ridiculed mean? So you have the word over here. What does ridicule mean? Who ridiculed Hassan? Ridiculed means mocked at or laughed at. Hassan was ridiculed by all. Describe briefly Amir and Hassan's relationship. Amir and Hassan were playmates together in all childhood games. Hassan adored Amir. He loved Amir and cared about him. What was Amir's problem? Or what was Amir's concern? Amir, who was motherless, struggled to win his father's adoration. He wanted to be praised by his father. Who persuaded Amir to take part in the annual kite fighting competition? Hassan, Amir's playmate, persuaded him to take part in the kite fighting competition. Now let's move to the second paragraph. When did the kite fighting tournament take place in Afghanistan? The kite fighting tournament took place during winter. What was the kite fighting tournament? The kite fighting tournament was an old winter tradition held annually in Afghanistan. It was a winter game or sport that everyone enjoyed, from snow-covered streets and rooftops. It would begin early in the morning and would only end with just the winning kite flying in the sky. From where would people cheer for the participants? People gathered on sidewalks and roofs to cheer for their kids. What did the kite fighters do while in the competition? The kite fighters would jerk and tug on their lines. They would look up at the sky, squinting, trying to gain position to cut the opponent's line. Who was the assistant for Amir? How did he help? Or who helped the spool and fed the line for Amir? Hassan was Amir's assistant in kite fighting. He helped Amir by holding the spool and feeding the line. What does a spool mean, or what is a spool? A spool is a cylindrical device on which the thread is wound. So it is a reel used in kite fighting. Who is an opponent? An opponent is a rival or a competitor or a challenger. So in the kite fight, when would the fun begin? The fun began when a kite was cut. So it's here, when the fun began when the kite was cut. Who were the kite runners? And what would they do? The kite runners were the boys who chased and ran to pick up or grab the kites that were cut by the opponents and fell from the sky. Where would the wind-blown kites that were cut down by the opponents fall? The kites would fall in a field, in someone's yard, on a tree, or on a rooftop. How would the chase for the kite get fierce? The chase for the kite would get fierce when there were hordes of kite runners on the street. So we have come to the end of this and we move on to the next paragraph. With what did the narrator compare the chase for the kites by the runners? You have it on the first line. So he compared the chase for the fallen kite by the kite runners to the people of Spain. To the people of Spain who ran from the bulls. So the comparison is there. You must remember that. What happened to the neighborhood kids who climbed a pine tree for a kite? The boy fell 30 feet down and was severely injured. What was the custom or rule that all kite runners had to follow? When a kite runner had his hands on a kite, no one could take it from him. That was the custom or rule everyone had to follow. You have it here. That was the custom. So what was the most coveted or desired prize for a kite runner? The most coveted prize was the last fallen kite of the winter tournament. So you have it here. It was the last fallen kite of the tournament. What was the last fallen kite of the tournament considered as? The last fallen kite of the tournament was considered to be a trophy. So it was considered to be a trophy of honor. Now, and it was supposed to be displayed in the house for guests to admire. When would the kite runners prepare themselves to get their prize? The kite runners readied themselves for the prize catch when just only two final kites remained in the sky. Where would a kite runner position himself? He would position himself at a spot that he thought would give him a head start. So he would position himself at a place where he could get a head start. Describe a kite runner who had readied himself for his prize. A kite runner would get ready by making his muscles ready to begin the race. His neck would be craned and his eyes would remain crumpled. He would be ready for the chase. Who does Amir say was the greatest among kite runners? So who was the greatest? Amir had seen lots of boys run for kites, but nobody was like Hassan. Hassan was the greatest kite runner Amir had seen ever. You have it there. What was special about Hassan running after the kite? Hassan was the greatest kite runner in Kabul according to Amir. So he got to the spot where the kite would land before the kite did land, actually as if he had some sort of inner compass to tell him the spot where the kite would land. So that was that. Describe the day of the kite fighting tournament. Fresh snow had fallen. You have it there. And the streets glistened with snow. The sky was clear blue. Snow had covered every rooftop and trees that lined the street. There were too many people on the street as never before. Children were playing in the snow and laughing. Kite fighters were readying themselves for the fight. Rooftops were full of spectators enjoying themselves and waiting for the tournament to begin. Music was being played. Tea and snacks were being served to the spectators on some of the rooftops. So these were the things happening. Whom did Amir see on the rooftop of his house? Amir saw his father, Baba, and Rahim Khan sitting on a bench, dressed in sweaters and sipping tea. So Amir saw his father on top of the roof. So he saw his father sitting there on top of his house. When Baba waved at them, what was Amir's feeling? When Baba waved, he couldn't tell if his father was waving at him or at Hassan. So what was Hassan wearing for the kite fighting tournament? Hassan was wearing black rubber boots. You can see it here. Hassan was wearing black rubber boots and snow boots and a green coat called chapan over a thick sweater and faded pants. What did Amir notice about the scar above Hassan's lips? So Amir saw that the scar above Hassan's lips had healed. So that is what he saw. We move on to the next paragraph. And we see here, that is page 119. Why did Amir suddenly wish to pack up and not to participate in the kite fighting competition? Amir felt that his father was watching him with great expectations that he would win the competition. But if he took part and failed, it would be a failure on a grand scale. And Amir already felt that the outcome would be something bad. Therefore, he was unwilling to participate in the competition. What words did Hassan tell Amir in a low voice that scared him a little? That there is no monster, just a beautiful day. You can see it here. There is no monster, but just a beautiful day. Why did Amir say, how could I be such an open book to him? What does he mean? So that's here, and such an open book to him. So Amir meant to say that Hassan understood him and could read his mind as if his mind was an open book for Hassan. I had no idea what was milling around in his head. So it's here, around in his head. What does Amir mean by the sentence? Amir could not make out and had absolutely no idea what was going on in the mind of Hassan. Why did Amir call himself smart? Because, we move on to the next line. Because he called himself smart because between Amir and Hassan, Amir was the one who went to school to study and he could read and write. Therefore, he is smart, or he was smart. Hassan couldn't read a first grade textbook, but he'd read me plenty. What does Amir mean by this line? So, Hassan meant to say that, Amir meant to say that although Hassan was illiterate and could not even read a first grade textbook, but still he was able to read Amir's mind, and this knowledge about him was upsetting or disturbing. What was a little upsetting for Amir? Or unsettling for Amir? The fact that Hassan could read his mind was a little upsetting for Amir. What was sort of comfortable to Amir? He says that was something sort of comfortable to Amir. It's here, you can see it. So it was comfortable to know that he had someone who always knew what he wanted. How did Hassan convince Amir to participate in the kite fighting event? Hassan encouraged Amir by telling him that it was a beautiful day and there was no monsters. What were the kids in the streets doing? The kids were running down the street throwing snowballs at each other. Now we turn to page 130. What was the color of Amir's kite, or describe Amir's kite? Amir's kite was red with yellow borders. What did Hassan do with the kite when they were about to begin? Hassan held the kite up over his head, tested the wind, and then ran in its direction and stopped 50 feet away. What would they do when they flew kites in the summer? How would Hassan find the direction of the wind? Hassan would kick up the dust to see which way the wind blew it. How does Amir compare Hassan holding the kite up? Amir said then when he held the kite up over his head, he looked like an Olympic athlete showing his gold medal. What was the duo's usual signal to begin? So how did they show the signal to begin? So they would jerk at the string twice to signal to begin the game. Mention the simile that described the sound of the kite going up in the air. The comparison of the sound of the kite was like a paper bird flapping its wings in the air. Why did Hassan clap his hands and run to Amir? Hassan clapped his hands when Amir's kite rocketed to the sky. Mention the simile that describes the kites hanging in the air. The kites hung in the sky like paper sharks roaming for prey. All that you can find in this paragraph. What kind of a wind was on that day? The wind was perfect for kite flying. How did Hassan's hands become bloodied? Hassan's hands were injured and bleeding because of the strings of the kite. So we come to the next paragraph. What happened to the defeated kites? The defeated kites whirled out of control. How does Amir compare the falling kites? Amir says that the falling kites look like shooting stars with brilliant rippling tales showering the neighborhood with prizes. So that is how he describes it. Then, what had happened in the street below? A fight had begun in the street below. So, why did Amir kept stealing glances at Baba? Because he wanted to know if he was cheering for him or for Hassan. What did Amir think Baba was thinking? Amir thought, we move on to the next line. Amir thought that Baba must have been surprised that he lasted for so long. We move on to the next line. So, you don't keep your eyes to the sky, you won't last much longer. Why did Amir say this? Because Amir felt that if he was not concentrating or focusing on the game, he may not last longer and fail. What kite was trying to cut Amir's kite? A red kite, it is here, was closing in on him, was reaching to his kite and trying to cut him from below. So we move on to page 121. Whom did the kite runner show off their prizes? They showed it off to their friends and parents. What was the biggest prize? Why was it yet to come? The biggest prize was that kite that lasted longer without being cut by the other kite flyers. It was yet to come as it was still flying up in the sky. What made deep cuts in Amir's hands and fingers? The kite string that rubbed with glass to sharpen it and make it coarse caused injuries to Amir's hands. Why did the tournament take a long time? Because the guys whose kites lasted were too good in kite flying and wouldn't easily give in to traps. What were some of the tricks to cut a kite? The simple trap of the lift and dive trick was one of the tricks to cut a kite. What was Hassan's favorite trick? You have it here. Hassan's favorite trick was the old lift and dive technique. The old lift and dive technique. You have it here. When did the clouds drifted in and the shadows lengthened? By 3 o'clock, the clouds started appearing in the sky. Why did the spectators bundled up in thick coats? Because suddenly it became colder due to the clouds in the sky. Why did Amir's legs ached and his neck became stiff? Because he was continuously looking upwards and continued to stand since the early morning of the day. With each kite that was defeated, what happened to Amir? With each defeated kite, Amir's hope of winning the competition grew. How does Amir compare the hope that grew in his heart? Amir compares the hope that grew in his heart to the snow that collected on a wall, one flake at a time. What kite was wreaking havoc for a long time? A blue kite was creating trouble in the sky and was a threat to Amir's kite too. How many kites did Hassan say the blue kite had cut? 11. So there were 11 kites that he said that the blue kite had cut. What was Hassan's trademark gesture? Hassan's trademark gesture was when he made a sound with his tongue and curled his chin. Why did Amir feel intoxicating? Amir felt the taste of winning for the first time when he felt that he was in full command in the kite flying competition. Why didn't Amir look up to the roof anymore? Because he couldn't dare look up at this point when he was about to win, and any distraction would bring trouble to his kite. Why didn't Amir dare to take his eyes off the sky? Because he did not want to lose the competition by getting distracted at such a stage. How does Amir compare the tension in the air? Amir compared the tension in the air to as stout as the glass string that he was holding in his hand. How did the spectators or people behave now? The spectators and people were clapping, whistling and chanting. So, slogans of Boboresh. What did Boboresh mean? Boboresh It's here. Boboresh meant, in Afghani language, meant cut him. What scenes and smell did Amir talk about? Amir saw people enjoying pakoras and steamed mantus on rooftops, and he heard loud music. What was all Amir wished now? Amir wished to hear the thudding of blood in his head. What was all that Amir could see now? He could only see the blue kite. What did Amir smell now? Amir smelt victory, salvation, redemption. Where did Amir hear about God? In school. Why does Amir say that this was his only chance to become someone? Amir felt that this was his only chance to become someone, as he felt he was never considered to be worth seeing and listened to. But now he had got this as a golden opportunity to prove to his father that he was also capable of doing good things. So this was his only chance to prove himself and become someone. So how did Amir take advantage of his opponent? By taking advantage of the gust of wind that lifted his kite. It was trying desperately to maneuver out of the jam. What does Amir mean? Amir said that the blue kite was trying to get out of the trap of Amir's kite. What did the crowd do when it seemed that the end was at hand? When the crowd sensed that the end was at hand, they started shouting louder. They shouted louder, cut him, cut him. What did Hassan tell Amir in the end? Hassan told Amir that he was almost there, that he was about to win, to encourage Amir. How did Hassan address Amir? Hassan called him Amir Agha. Why was Hassan screaming at the end? Because Amir had won the competition. What did Hassan do to Amir? He wrapped his arms around Amir's neck to show his appreciation. What is mantu? Mantu is a dish served in Afghanistan. Why is victory both a salvation and a redemption for Amir? Because through his victory, he got a chance to atone for his sins. Children, we have completed 100 questions from this lesson, and I hope you have enjoyed learning with me. So I hope you are going to give very good answers even if you have an exam offline or online. Thank you.